Opposites and absolute values. Most of this is not new. So first of all, let's just review the difference between the two. If I said the opposite of -3, what is the opposite of -3? Brian? +3. What is the opposite of 1/2? Jim? -1/2. How about -1.5? What's the opposite? Roland?
Positive 1.5.
Good. +1.5. Notice what we're seeing here. When we use the word opposites, we're talking about the positive and the negative opposites. That's it. What's the opposite of 0? Christina?
0.
0. Remember, 0 never has a negative. It's considered an even number and a positive number, even though it means nothing. Okay, so when opposites, we're talking positive and negative opposite. Okay, absolute value is slightly different. Remember first that absolute value means the distance from 0 on the number line. Bless you. Oh, that was so cute. Whatever that was, that's a very cute sneeze. 0. So I'll just do a quick example for absolute value here. I drew myself a quick number line, gave myself a 0, I put some lines in, I didn't label them all. Now remember that absolute value is going to be shown using the symbol of these two straight lines. So this means the absolute value of -3. Okay, so this is the symbol, this is what it would look like. The absolute value of -3 means how many spaces from 0 is it on the number line. So what is the absolute value of -3? Carissa?
3.
Yes, it is 3 spaces. We don't care which direction it goes. Doesn't matter if it's going in the positive or the negative direction, it's 3 spaces away. What about the absolute value of 3? And again, absolute value means how many spaces from 0. Rebecca?
3.
Also 3. So make sure that you remember the difference. Absolute value is not the opposite. Absolute value is always positive. What if I said the absolute value of some number I don't know equals 5? And then I say, what could n be? What value could be in those absolute value marks? Daniel and Always, give me one. N could be -5. What else could it be if it has an absolute value of 5? Kate?
5.
Good. We don't know which one it is. They both would have an absolute value of 5. Pretty simple. Now, how are we going to make it a little harder? By just adding in this idea of opposites with negative numbers. Okay? So for example, if I say this, I would read this as the opposite. Opposite can be shown with a negative. The opposite of -1.8 is how I would read that. The opposite of -1.8. To do the opposite, we can use a minus or a negative symbol. So how would I simplify this? If I say, what's the opposite of -1.8? Luke. Jaylene. What is the opposite of -1.8? 1.8, right? Easy question if you're listening. So I just want you to be familiar with that's what this means. When we have that double negative, also think about if we were subtracting. We're going to get to this soon enough, but in the beginning of chapter 2, subtracting with integers. Addition is this, subtraction is the same as?
Adding the opposite.
If this would, thank you. It's like my little math cult. Daniel, don't worry, you'll be joining the cult too. Subtraction, my math cult. Shh, my math cult. Right, guys? It's my gang, my math posse. M for math.
Oh wait, I'm in your game now?
Yep.
Straight out of the mouth.
Shh. You are too, Jamie. All right. Shh. Shh. Just be aware that this is what this notation means. If we were doing this as subtraction, there was something else in front of that minus, we would add the opposite. It would change to positive. Let me show you another example. Let's see here. Let me get one that's a little bit. 6 plus bracket opposite of -2. We're going to want to simplify that before we do anything. So let's simplify this. If this means the opposite of -2, what are we adding to the 6? What is the opposite of -2, Diego? 2. So just starting to get familiar with that idea that that minus, that first one, can mean the opposite of whatever comes next. Okay? Last thing is just going to be adding in a little more with absolute value marks. So if you see that, you're going to want to get the absolute value before you do the operation. Here's what I mean. One example, then we're done. Absolute value of -7 plus the absolute, whoops, there we go. Absolute value of -7 plus the absolute value of 5. Get the absolute value first. What's the absolute value of -7? Brian?
7.
What's the absolute value of 5? Vincent?
5.
5. Our answer is 12. So you first get the absolute value, which is pretty simple, then you do the operation. That's it. Tomorrow we review, Wednesday.